balloons, bazookas, boobies, bosoms, boulders, cans, hooters, knockers, melons, honkers, jugs, rack, tatas, tits, torpedoes, guns, bust, doorknobs, coconuts, and our favorite one, the girls. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, where your host, Lori, highlights mothers just like yourself and goes beyond the surface questions and digs deep so they share not only their joys and happiness in their daily breastfeeding life, but also their pain and struggles and how they worked through them.
Episode number 121, Thanksgiving 2016. Welcome to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. I am your host, Lori Eisenstadt, IBCLC, which stands for International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. I help moms with breastfeeding, and I am so glad you are joining us today. I know I have lots of listeners all over the world. I have not checked lately, but the last time I looked, I have listeners in well over 50 countries. I am so grateful for this, as this means so many moms are listening and learning all about breastfeeding and hearing the voices of so many moms who have shared their breastfeeding and motherhood journeys. I know that Canadians have already celebrated their Thanksgiving in October. Here in the United States, we're celebrating Thanksgiving this week. I don't claim to know what is happening holiday-wise all over the world. However, I do know that for many, this time of the year is the big kickoff to the beginning of what is usually, for most people, a very busy holiday season. I wanted to talk to you today about how the holidays impact your life as a breastfeeding mother. I really want to zero in on a few topics that are quite prevalent this time of year. I would like to first talk to all the new moms who have just had a new baby and are in the I just gave birth yesterday, last week, last month, 8 weeks ago phase, and to those who will give birth at some point over this holiday season. As a lactation consultant, childbirth educator, and birth doula, having worked with moms during the 20-something holiday season so far, I have a pretty good idea of how stressful this time of year can be for some of you. On the one hand, when you realized you were going to give birth around holiday time, I know you had daydreams of how wonderful it was to be spending the holidays with your family and friends and a new baby, and how special this would be. This evokes all warm and fuzzy feelings and excitement in the air. This is absolutely true. It can definitely be warm and fuzzy and real exciting and very special. It also, I have learned, has a strong tendency to be anywhere between just a little bit stressful to kind of sort of stressful but doable, and all the way to this is so stressful, I just can't wait for all of this to be over. And I'd rather you not spend the holiday season just counting the days for it to be over. I'd much rather you enjoy them. This is such a special time that I would love to help make this holiday season a happy and joyful one for you and your family. I have collected tips over the years and love to share them with you. This is also a great show to share with your significant other, with your parents, and close friends and family. This will really help them know where you're coming from and help give them tips on how they can best help you. My very first tip is, how you go about sharing this info. No one likes someone being pushy with us and shoving something down our throat, right? When I have something to share with people I know, I just send a quick link to the article or to the show with a one-line message. Listen to this or read this. I found it helpful, and I think you will too. My children know that they will get Facebook text messaging from me because that's how they best communicate, even better than an email. So I'm sending them things through Facebook, whatever works for you. The very first thing we all need to acknowledge is that you have just recently given birth, or soon to be. Every single mother needs and deserves a good 6 weeks of having little to no responsibilities other than to take care of yourself and your baby. I find that when you join the rat race too early, here is what happens. You just don't get enough sleep. You're not eating really well, and you don't take really good care of your personal hygiene. And what happens is that your physical self does not heal as quickly, and your emotional self is really taking a toll. If you are fortunate enough to have loved ones helping you, my best tip here is something that I heard when I was being trained as a childbirth educator. And when she got to the point of talking to people about how to best help themselves postpartum, what she did was say, if you have relatives or friends who are offering to help you, her famous saying was, use and abuse them. In a very loving way, of course, though. But many people really are offering with a good heart to help. The problem is we don't feel comfortable accepting the help. What I need to tell you is take them up on every offer to help with almost anything except for feeding your breastfed baby. The mom who takes good care of herself the first 8 weeks after birth is the mom who typically feels better at 8 weeks, has more energy, and ready to meet the challenges of the day-to-day world. Being a mom is just tiring. That may not get much better for a few more months. However, taking care of yourself in the early days postpartum puts you at a good advantage of quicker healing, and this plays a lot into how the next few months go for you. What happens is that new mothers spend the first few weeks telling people, no, I'm okay. No, I don't need anything. And then what happens is that 4, 5, 6 weeks later, all your helpers are gone and you are so burnt out and so exhausted. So use and abuse them. I have a whole plan on how you can get through the first 6 to 12 weeks postpartum. And that's just in general. I really wanted to zero in on the holiday season, so I will talk about this at another time. But right now, this is just how to get through the holiday season. And you know, it's just the beginning of the holiday season, and I have already visited 2 homes in which I saw what I call recipe for disaster. Disaster with breastfeeding, I mean. In one instance, Lisa had her baby just 8 days ago, and Ellen had her baby 5 weeks ago, and both were bound and determined to keep everything the same as it always is. Lisa is trying to figure out how to get her famous holiday dish on the table, and she's feeling pretty much like crap. And Ellen, well, her baby is 5 weeks old, and she wants to do the whole Thanksgiving feast. And I could literally see her shaking and teary-eyed when she's talking about it. So believe me, I had a little talk with her and gave her a little bit of my mother sense in a way. Not too pushy, but just gave her some ideas. And also, probably the biggest theme throughout this is what I told her, to just accept the fact that this holiday season, you may not get to do things that you usually do, and you may not necessarily like the way things are done, but you will get through it, and you really need to prioritize you and your baby. Think about last year and how fast this year came. Well, next year with a new baby, that will come lickety-split, and with some planning a year from now, you'll probably be able to have that holiday dish or that holiday dinner that you wanted to do this year. It will all be there a year from now. My first tip was to share this show with family and friends because that will be helpful to you. My second tip is recognize the importance of you laying low and taking care of yourself as being the number one most important thing you can do to help you get through the early weeks of breastfeeding. Just think about it. Close your eyes for a minute and just think how your body feels. Your breasts, your nipples, your belly, your bottom. We've been through a lot. Pregnancy, childbirth, and now postpartum. A lot of our parts of our body are just not feeling and looking the same way. Just think about how tired your body, your muscles feel, how much you need to take a nap. I want you to think about this every time when you think about doing a little too much. Just close your eyes and think about how your body feels. And you will prioritize and say, you know what? I don't think I can do that right now. This is my hope. Moms who busy themselves with all kinds of activities in and outside of the house, you are more likely to have greater difficulties than moms who recognize their main priorities are taking care of yourself and breastfeeding and getting to know your baby. Your body and your baby don't really care about things around you being perfect. Tip number 3. How do you do this when you feel like you have so much to do? Well, this holiday season, this will mean a change, a shift in your mindset as to how you see yourself fitting into the holiday season. With tip number 3, I tell you, accept the fact that this year the holidays are just going to be different and that you will be taking a back seat. Accept the fact that things may not be as well as you like them. Things you usually do may be done wrong or totally forgotten. And accept the fact that this will all be okay. Your body and your baby don't really care about things being perfect. Tip number 4, just get over the fact that you will not be able to cook that special dinner or that special dish that everyone looks forward to each year. Believe me, they will all live without your famous brownies this year, and it will make it all that much better and special next year. Remember, your body and your baby don't really care about things being perfect and things being the same. Tip number 5, if you really must, then pick 2 things that are really driving you crazy and making it impossible for you to sit down and relax. If I have to choose the top 2 things that most new mothers express about this topic, it would be a clean house and decent dinners. If this is you and you are saying that you can deal with not doing all you usually do during the holidays, but you just cannot stand a messy home, ask a friend for a referral to their house cleaners and have someone come in once a week or twice a month for the first 6 months. If this will allow you to stay put, then it is money well worth spent. Decent dinners. This is where you can ask loved ones who come to visit to pick up takeout from your favorite restaurants. And don't be shy about this. Most moms tell me they actually do have people asking them what they can do for them. But you're too shy to ask, or you don't think they really mean it. Believe me, most do mean it, particularly if it's other mothers. They have lived what you are living through now, and they know the fatigue of new motherhood, and nothing would make them happier than to ease some of your burden. Use and abuse them. And remember, your body and your baby really don't care about things being perfect. Tip number 6 and 7. The next 2 tips are ones that I sincerely hope you take to heart. Now that you have some of the most important things taken care of, and now that you've accepted the fact that this holiday season is going to be different than most and are doing your best to adopt the "we will be fine" attitude, and there's always next year attitude, my next 2 tips are all about breastfeeding. I really want you to have a quiet talk with yourself and ask yourself, why is it that you wanted to breastfeed? Then I want you to remind yourself why this is very important to you. I want you to really think about how you approach other aspects of your life when you decide that something is really important to you. The answer that most people will give is that they give this thing, whatever it is, their utmost attention. They make this thing their priority. I want you to remind yourself that breastfeeding your baby needs to be given your utmost attention and needs to be a top priority, holiday season or not. The season will come and go, but the learning curve and the time and commitment to getting your breastfeeding groove going is actually quite short-lived. I say this because I see this all the time and the statistics do not lie. Approximately 80% of mothers start off breastfeeding, and by the 4th week of their baby's life, less than half are still exclusively breastfeeding. I venture to guess that these numbers are even lower during the holiday time based on what I see. Some of the common reasons: you're just so busy trying to get everything else done. And what happens? This translates into missed feedings for your baby, and it means even more bottle feeding while you're out and about shopping. If you take your baby with you and are shy about breastfeeding in public, you might hold your baby off until you get home. Meanwhile, your breasts are overly full, become engorged, and make for a difficult feeding once home. Mastitis, which is a breast infection, the rates of mastitis go sky high during the holiday season. And years ago, as a student, I used to think, well, maybe it's because the weather gets cold and people get sick. And well, as a student, I really didn't realize that none of that has anything to do with this. What it really is about, moms being too busy and holding off feedings. Their breasts get overly full. They get clogged ducts, and that will lead to a breast infection some of the times. You just get so busy with everything else, you have missed feedings, and your breasts do not like missed feedings, and neither does your baby. So what happens is you're holding your baby off until you get home, your breasts are getting full, they're very engorged, and it makes it much more difficult for your baby to latch on. You're also so busy that you're not eating well or keeping yourself well hydrated. Not hunkering down and spending more time at home than out and about, well, this typically means less naps during the day and much more difficult nighttime feedings. Perhaps you're struggling with painful breastfeeding and just not taking the time to get expert help. You keep putting it off and putting it off. Well, too many days in a row or too many weeks in a row of suffering usually means breastfeeding creates much anxiety for you. And what happens is you're going to reach a point where you feel you just can't do it anymore. And then the breastfeeding goes. I would also like to talk about prioritizing breastfeeding. Put as much aside as you possibly can so you can concentrate on breastfeeding. There is a huge learning curve for most of us new mothers, and accepting this and getting the help you need will go a long way in successful breastfeeding. Being available to your baby once they begin showing hunger cues will just make breastfeeding that much easier. Once your baby's cries begin to escalate too much, it then takes a lot of work to calm them down. And while you're working hard to calm them down, your anxiety is raising, the knots in your stomach are multiplying, and it just makes everything that much more difficult. When you are busy in the kitchen or outside shopping or trying to decorate your house for the holidays, you poop yourself out and make it difficult to be available for your baby when your baby needs you. Remember, your postpartum healing body really does not care, nor does your baby, if things are not as they usually are. The last tip, number 7, accept the fact that things are going to be different this year. I know I've said that before, and I've wrapped it around other tips, but this is probably my best tip standing alone at all. Just accept the fact that things are going to be different this year. And I say it and I say it again because we need to hear it again and again. You know, if you're not comfortable breastfeeding with others around, this will mean that you might be leaving the dinner table or the conversation in the living room, or maybe even being late for dinner at someone else's home. That is okay. It won't always be the same. Excuse yourself and leave the room and go to a quiet, private space and just sit and relax and breastfeed your baby. If you're running late, when you get there, excuse yourself for being late. Most people will understand. And honestly, if they don't, well, tough luck on them. You can't be worried about their feelings more than you're worried about yourself, because your priority right now is you and your baby. I see this as such a common problem that causes breastfeeding difficulty. Moms not feeling comfortable breastfeeding in front of other people. So in the early days of breastfeeding, sometimes, especially during the holiday season, they say, you know what, let me just pump and put the milk in a bottle. And when you're in a rush or on the outside or have guests in your home, they could be breastfeeding your baby. You're grateful for the extra set of hands and you're happy to see them breastfeed your baby, and they're very happy too. You're grateful for the time this frees up for you and you realize you can get so much more done. This does have its downside though with breastfeeding. While some babies, and I've met them, they do absolutely fine going back and forth from bottles to breast in the early days, but for more babies than not, it tends to make it more difficult for babies to learn the art of breastfeeding and get really good at it. And they start chomping on mom's nipples using the same kind of sucking habits they do on a bottle, and this does not bode well for good breastfeeding. Remember, this is a busy time of year, and if breastfeeding is becoming more difficult or you deem that it is a huge inconvenience, you then begin to rely more on bottles and breastfeed less. Your supply goes down and your baby quickly begins to show a preference towards the fast flow of the milk from the bottle. Pretty soon the new year has come and gone and you are no longer breastfeeding. Then the sadness comes in and you begin to have regrets. Life has slowed down. The holidays are over. Not too many people around anymore. There's no more family and friends around. And you find yourself that you are now pumping and you are now having to give your baby all the bottles as that extra set of hands are not around anymore. And you realize this is not really what you wanted or planned on doing. I bring this up because this is a very, very, very common scenario that I see replay year after year. It happens any time of the year, but much more prevalent during the holiday times. January and February for me, I have a surge of calls from moms who are telling me they'd like to get back to breastfeeding now that the holidays are over, and they express similar circumstances to what I just talked about. They express guilt, which, by the way, I definitely do not feel any mother should feel guilty about this. And they express regret over not paying closer attention to the breastfeeding. Most will say that had they known that the busyness of life would get in the way of breastfeeding, they may have made other decisions. And this is what today's show is all about. Letting new mothers know one of the most common problems of not prioritizing yourself, your sleep, your health during this delicate postpartum period, and the impact it can have on long-term breastfeeding. Most of us just don't recognize the consequences of our actions. And again, many mothers tell me after the fact that had they known, had someone explained this in the way that I just did, they may have made other decisions. I wish all my listeners in the United States a very happy Thanksgiving holiday filled with love, laughter, good food, and good friends. If you like, send me an email at aabreastfeeding@hotmail.com with your best tips on how you, as a breastfeeding mother, are getting through the holidays. I will be happy to share your tips on the air. Until the next show, bye-bye. Have you heard that Phoenix, Arizona is blessed with an amazing birthing center? Baby Moon Inn Birth Center is the best option for families who want access to midwifery care in and out of a hospital setting. You can experience birth in a comfortable home-like setting where natural birth is the focus. laboring in water, being able to walk outside during labor, and enjoy the beautiful garden. This is what birth can be like for you. There is so much more to learn about Baby Moon. The staff would love to have the opportunity to meet you and would like to extend an invitation for you to attend a free Choices in Childbirth class and a tour of the birth center. All you need to do is call 602-314-7755. That's 602-314-7755 and ask for the tour dates. You can also go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/podcast. And on the right-hand side of the page, you will see a link that will bring you to the calendar and you can sign up for the tour yourself. When you come in for the tour, make sure that you tell them you found out about it from the All About Breastfeeding podcast, and you will be given a very lovely free gift.